Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. Good morning. Welcome to episode 306. 306 of these things we've made. I am still working on the page that will not die. If you guys are just tuning in. So I'll be working today on the doc. I'll be working on page 79 of Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is a crazy page. Saved me forever to flat and draw. But it's going to be worth it, and I'm really excited, and I think we're getting closer to at least being done with panel 1, which has been a beast of a panel. My buddy Chris Kawagua made a really good suggestion, and I think I'm going to take him up on it. So he was saying, hey, you're doing this crazy crowd scene. Maybe tell people if they super chat like 20, 30 bucks, you'll throw them in the crowd scene. So there's a couple things here. I'll show you the page. We'll get into specifics on that. But yeah, so there's a couple things with this. One is I have an editor, so I can't guarantee that the revision or the addition of the person in the crowd scene will most likely get through, but most likely it will. I just, again, maybe they'd be revised. The catch is, I think I'll try to make whoever wants to like super chat like 20 bucks or something. I'll show you this crowd scene. Let's see this. This is page 79 of this graphic novel. And so you could be one of these figures in the crowd. I could literally revise any of these figures if you wanted to do that by like super chatting, like 20 bucks. Let's say 20 bucks. Unless that's the case, I'll probably just stick with my right here. A good example is like, here's a little indicator of like Frank Salazar, who's going to be in here. He didn't super chat for this. It was just he's my moderator, so of course he gets in. But I thought my friend Chris called me after I did a stream and was like, hey, you should offer that to people. So that's on offer in case you guys want to be in the crowd, so that you can, when this thing is published, point to this page and go, hey, that's me on thing. But there's a couple parameters. One is you'll have to just kind of accept how it's drawn, because it would be very cartoony. But if that's something people are interested in, 100%, anything super chatted like 20 bucks or above, I'll reach out to you and ask for a photograph, and then we'll just kind of do a little caricature, a character of you that could be in the crowd. If you are unable to, maybe we'll kind of keep that as like a little side quest as I'm doing these pages, that whenever there are crowd scenes, that have like some ancillary or background characters, I will open it up for super chats so people can appear in the pages of this book that'll be published by Turner Publishing. Again, if it were to get revised or something like that, I would find a way to kind of work the people into the pages. But it was a good idea from Chris, so that's one thing I'm going to do for people. So yeah, so if you want to be in the crowd, that is a possibility. I'm going to be working on this crazy page. I'm getting closer to done. Everything in magenta. Anybody who's familiar with my process, anything in magenta is basically what I haven't yet flat colored. Also, if you're watching this after the fact, I guess you can just reach out to me if you want to be in the crowd, and maybe we could, you could PayPal me or something like that. We'll figure it out. Anyhow, so I worked on, as you can see, I got a little further on this yesterday. I was listening to a bunch of documentaries, weirdly enough, like about Israel. Like I was kind of interested in, I had heard somebody mention that they have this like amazing Air Force that had kind of pulled off like these crazy maneuvers in history. And I honestly didn't know a lot of it. So I ended up going through this like day long, like I'm working on my comic and listening to these like crazy war stories about, like there's one where like the Israeli Air Force within like a week or sorry, within like a day had like, I think with 200 jets, had annihilated the entire Egyptian Air Force, like while it was grounded. And it's like this crazy story, and I had like kind of heard suggestions of it, and so I started looking into it and like looking at just some of the crazy, amazing things that country's like pulled off, like in war scenarios. And I was like, wow, they have a crazy Air Force. Anyhow, so that's what I was feeding my brain with, and then just working, So I'm pretty excited about it. Jim said, I think if the Packers run a uh, solid run black defense, they got a shot. Is this football talk? Am I in the right chat? I don't even know. This is how bad I am with sports. I don't even know who the Packers, like. I don't know. Is that Cleveland? I don't know what state that is. I actually have no idea. I am so out of touch with sports that I probably, outside of my little California bubble, I probably don't know really any teams and where they're from. Green Bay. Where's Green Bay? I don't even know where Green Bay is. And I can imagine anybody who's like a sports fan just hearing me be like, "Where's Green Bay?" And they're like, "Oh," but I'm not. It's not an act, guys. I've had minimal interest in sports like my entire life. The only time I was really into sports, I still remember this. My dad was really into the Lakers, like the LA Lakers in the 80s. And there was this era where the Lakers just picked up like back to back Lakers. It was like, and I'm talking like long, this is going to make me sound old, but we're talking like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we're talking AC Green, Magic Johnson, back when like there was a big rivalry between I'm forgetting the guy's name from the Celtics. There's like Larry Bird, and you had Magic Johnson, and it was like this, and then Jordan was just starting out, That's kind of my era. Um I think when I dropped out of like even following those games with my dad was when like I think Vlade Divac had just started. This is like how long ago I actually followed sports. I enjoyed playing basketball a lot. But I just, and I'm not against sports. I just like, I don't know what it is. It just never really connected. I have to say, like, for sports, as far as sports goes, I get it because I've been to, like, obviously, like, growing up, and this is something I still intend to do with my kid, even though I don't follow sports. I think there is something to be said for, like, going to a Dodger game and, like, experiencing, like a live baseball game and the crowd getting all riled up and stuff, and then the 10,000 hours till like somebody makes a play. Like, but there's something to be said for that I think is a very American thing. Um yeah, Jim was saying sports boys. So yeah, anyhow, I am about as knowledgeable about sports as I am about um oh my goodness, I can't even. I was gonna think of like a clever analogy, but I can't think of anything less interesting to me. It's horrible. It's horrible. And it's funny because it's like it's been a thing my whole life. Like even when I've worked in house places and people are like talking about teams and players and stuff like that, it just sounds like listening. It just sounds very much like listening to like a different language that I don't speak. It's like it's not a negative. It's just like, wow, I have no idea what this language is. I don't understand it. Um I very much related to like the IT crowd. There's like a famous IT crowd episode where they pretend to like sports and they go to a game and they're like, well, now he is kicking the ball. Like they're analyzing it almost like a, um, like a, anthropologist or something, Um, I will say, because my dad grew up in Chicago too, I did watch quite a bit of hockey. And, I remember, my dad was like a big Blackhawks guy. Um, because he, grew up around in Chicago and Illinois. And so it's like, and Indiana and like areas like that. So, that's where most of his childhood was. And so it's like, yeah. So my dad was into sports, but I never fully connected to them at all. What's funny, this is a little known fact. My dad actually played baseball for Indiana State, which is kind of interesting. So there you go. And my brother's really talented at baseball. He, I think, to this day holds the record at his old high school for like most bases stolen or something. And then somehow on the in the genetic lottery, I ended up being like the twig who had no, like, just complete disinterest in sports. um, a scrawny little kid. That's basically me. I'm, yeah. So, but I will say the one thing that helped me unlock it, because I've always been confused by sports, and the one thing that helped me kind of unlock it was the idea of like connecting it to cosplay. That actually helped me quite a bit because it was like a friend of mine pointed out, that people who are sports fans are kind of just super nerds, and at games quite often they're just kind of cosplaying their favorite, their favorite player or whatever. Like they get their favorite player's jersey. It's like it's very much a cosplay kind of thing. And to me that was where it unlocked for me. I was like, "Oh, we're all geeks." Which is something that you start realizing when you get older is the fact that Jim said you would love an MMA match between Chris Ware and Daniel Klaus. Me too, actually. I did have to watch a bunch of MMA a couple years back. I did some artwork for an MMA champion because we were both working for the disabled veterans at a discount, and he had a T-shirt line called "American Fighters Never Quit," and I did a couple illustrations of him. And so, in order to do illustrations of him, I had to watch his fights to like see his moves and stuff. But he's like one of the old hat like MMA champions. I think it's before it really, from what I could understand, it was kind of before. Um, I think there was this era where like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu came in and just annihilated everyone. Like, and I think it was before that. I think it's when like there were still like more, there was more like mixes of the martial arts at that point in time. And I think it was a little more brutal too. I think the rules were a little less tight. But anyhow, I ever watched MMA, and then I remember watching it and being like, I'm not like I'm not big on watching people like get beat up. Like that's just, it's a weird thing. It's like when I'm, um, for me, like I know people who like they like looking at like YouTube videos of people like stepping on a rake and like knocking all their teeth out, or like falling off a building, or just like these awkward, like clumsy slapstick moments where people are getting injured, and they find it hilarious. And I've just never been able to do that. I've always just felt, I mean, maybe this is like why I'm like a sensitive little liberal. It's like I've always felt bad for the guy. I've always felt bad for the people who get hurt. It's just not fun to watch. Um, but I will say, having to watch it um for that guy, like for the guy I was doing art for, um it was an interesting thing, because I started to understand why people liked watching it, because there's really like an art to it, and there's tactics to it, and it's very much like I mean, I guess it's called martial arts for a reason, but it's like you do understand the art of it, because it's like very elegant it's brutal, but it's like elegant. It's kind of weird. And I've watched like boxing matches and stuff like that before. Um, you know, but yeah, it's strange. I feel like in that sense I'm a very strange person, because I've never been into like watching like real violence. Um, uh, yeah. And yet like I can get really into like a horror movie, but even with horror movies, Um, it's like I don't like watching the like super realistic horror movies. I like horror movies where like the gore is just ridiculous and not believable. When it gets a little too close to reality, it's just like, for me, again, my tolerance is really low for that kind of thing. So I don't know if that makes me like a weird, sensitive dude. I don't know, but I've been that way my whole life. Like I never really take pleasure in people's destruction. But the weird thing is, I do take pleasure in watching people intellectually destroyed. so so it's like I feel like my version of MMA that I like to watch is like debates. Which I know, like, what's funny is I think people who are fans of like physical confrontations would far prefer watching people just box it out. Um, but anyhow, yeah. So it's been an interesting few days. Um, this panel has just been like taking forever, but I think that I'm going to get through the whole page today. That's my goal. So we'll see how that goes. Um, yeah, I like Christopher's terminology here, because it's about how connected I am to sports. Where he said, "Green Bay is where the Packers play the footballs." Nice. Is that where they throw the ball with their foot? It's funny though, like there are some times where I'll get really into sports, but they're very brief. Like I remember it was like the World Cup and the U.S. was in it, and my brother in law is from England, and so he was rooting for England, and there was an England versus U.S. game, and I've never been more annoyingly patriotic than I was during those games. And part of it was I just wanted the US to win because they call it soccer, and it annoys, like the whole world is annoyed by the fact that the US calls football soccer. And I there's a cheesy, very obnoxious like America side of me that wants to see, which will probably never happen because I don't think we have the greatest teams. But it would be so fun to see a U.S. win in the World Cup at some point, because then like I could just see the acceptance speech where they're like, "I've been playing soccer since I was a kid," and everybody's like, "It's not soccer." um, yeah. So I don't know. Um, yeah, I can definitely see the appeal of it, but I feel like it's a very time consuming thing. People I know that are really into sports, they like dedicate like tons of time to sports. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, I barely watch any movies as they come out. I don't know when I'd have time to like watch sports and listen to sports shows and listen to like dudes talk about sports. I guess it's kind of like being into comics would be for like a lot of people, where it's like, dude, I could listen to like people talk comics all day. I think a lot of people might be like, dude, this is boring as hell. Let me hear somebody talk about, well, they recruited this guy, because that's one thing I noticed. Whenever I would notice people talking sports, they talk about it like they were running the team, where they're like, oh, did you hear about so and so? That was a good call recruiting him, and like it's like it's strange obsession with like the players and stuff. But I guess that makes sense if you're into like following it. I can kind of get it. I can understand, because when I was a kid, man, there was nothing more fun. I think my favorite player at the time was AC Green, and it was so fun to see him play. I always felt like from that era, he didn't get quite the credit that was due. um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I can do the sports. I do know, like, I used to think it was like a divide between those who like liked sports and those who did art. And then when I got to art school, I realized like, no, like most people really enjoy watching sports. Yeah. It's just kind of a weird thing. Welcome to Joshua Kemble's Sportscast. I'm Joshua Kemble. Jim, why did you bring up sports? Why? Of all things. Of all things, it's like you found my kryptonite. Anytime, like this would be the thing in the movie if I became like a supervillain or something, and people wanted to like destroy me, they could just bring up sports, and I'd be like, I don't know anything about it, and I'd just explode. How are you guys doing today? Have you guys played any sports lately? how's how's your sports life going? So, yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I am a nerdy guy. I didn't even understand exercise in the slightest until like a couple years back. It took me till like my 30s to actually start seeing the value of exercise because when I was like in school, like I didn't do gym stuff, and then like I'd just get yelled at by my gym guy, like the gym dude, the PE guy. And this is back in the day when they could get like real like PE guys. I envy modern kids when it comes to PE. Because if you were an outcast and you were taking PE classes, it was not unusual for your PE teacher to call you out and start calling you a bunch of slurs. um, which was always an incredibly rewarding experience. But I can't imagine what it's like to actually be in a PE class where maybe it's actually about physical education rather than survival of the fittest, trying to get kids to murder each other and, and then like I feel like there's a part of PE when I was younger that felt like prison, where it's like you'd feel like you're gonna get shanked. You like, you had to kind of watch your back in PE. It's like that's when all the giant just you know they like PE was like the sports guys equivalent of like for me. I took a lot of like AP classes, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be in like the top 2 or 3 people in this class, like no problem, and it's gonna be fun. And you know, if I was like a sports guy in that class, at least that back in the day, in one of those classes, that's probably what I would have felt like. I probably would have felt like I did in PE, where I would be in PE and like, um, yeah, that was just not my element. It was just another world. It was a dangerous time, you guys, back in the day. Dangerous days. But it always amazes me when there are people who are like hybrids, where because I grew up in a really small town, so there wasn't like a huge crossover with like at least at my school, there wasn't like a massive amount of like extremely intellectual um jocks. It was like there was kind of jerk jocks that were kind of idiots. And then there was like, so I had this like cartoonish vision when I was a kid of like what like sports people were like, what athletic people were like. And obviously like, meanwhile I'm watching like Monty Python, where like John Cleese was like incredibly good at sports. I didn't know that growing up. I thought like Cleese was a geek like me. And it's like, no, he's like, a lot of the Python guys were like athletic and like they knew what they were doing. So it's like I'm under no pretense that like athleticism is a dumb thing. I think actually like a lot of intelligent people do athletics. It's just funny because I don't know if it was just the town I was in, but it was like meatheads that didn't read versus those of us who did. And that's kind of how it was, from my experience. It was just like there was just no like crossover between academics and like gym bros or whatever. um Nowadays, like I feel like maybe that changed, or maybe it was just the school I went to, because I don't think it's like that everywhere. I think it was just like uniquely uh school I went to experience. Okay, we are getting closer. We have finished the crowd scene on the sides. We're getting so much closer, you guys. How's everybody doing? What are you guys working on? Jim sent a sneak peek of part of the full fungus, where there were Christopher Runciman voices that were amazing. Good job, Christopher, from what I saw. It looked kind of amazing. I'm excited about the Gopher Snake. He seems like a really funny character. I'm excited about the announcer. I'm excited about a lot of it. I'm not going to give anything away. But, you know, yeah, I think this is going to be a great Jim Lujan cartoon. Thing that fascinates me about Jim's process of animating is like he will it's like he goes so wild with the stories, like in a great way. Um like I'm trying to think of how he's formulating this story where it's like you have professional bowlers, game show hosts, um like what seems like an old time mobster. uh you have a long lost jazz musician named, now I'm blanking out on his first name, but like Fungus is his last name. Maybe Jim can correct me and let me know his first name, but it's Fungus is his last name. I'm really bad with names. Um, but anyhow, it's like such a like kind of wacky story, but like in the best of ways. And the neat thing about Jim is he'll show you these clips, and I love seeing like little sneak previews of what he's working on because quite often there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to guess where he's going to go with it. Like, even when I did a voice for one of Jim's cartoons, it's like I had no idea where the story was going to go. And I love that about his stuff, because somehow he'll make it work with all these disparate things. I think there's like MMA fighters in his new movie too. It's just kind of all over the place with the cast and some of the plots and subplots that I've heard thus far. But the great thing about Jim is he'll make it work and he'll pull it together. It's kind of fascinating to me, and really cool and unique, I think, to his stuff. So I'm excited to see how, you know, a legendary jazz musician is mixing with a legendary bowler, is mixing with, a mobster, is mixing with an MMA fighter. It's going to be interesting. And I don't mean that in the like insult to artists way where it's like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Interesting. Like, I don't want to do that. I mean sincerely interesting. It sounds really cool. Um we're just going to fill out this crowd. Like, the nice thing is this part of the audience thing shouldn't take that long to kind of get through. So like while the balcony stuff took a while to flat, I think we're going to be through this one in like no time. Um we have the colors for Robert and Elizabeth, so that's good. We could just do a cheat, right? And oh, that's hilarious to me. There's a Tim Pool thing. I got to show this off again. This is a meme that Frank Salazar made based on my streams where I was talking crap about Tim Pool. Anyhow, let's see here. Uh, okay, so I think this part will go really fast for the flatting. Anyhow, it was really interesting. I I don't know. I have this thing, and I think a lot of us do, where I get curious about something, and then I'll go down like a YouTube rabbit hole about it for like 3 days or something. It's like binging. And that's literally why I didn't stream yesterday. Cause I was doing that, just learning a little bit about Israel and their military. I was just like, this is really fascinating. It was interesting. So then I started like going down a rabbit hole of like the history of that nation, and it was really cool. Um, really fascinating stuff. And I feel like chasing those things every once in a while is good because it kind of makes you a more informed person. It's like anytime I like stumble upon something that seems like something I should know that I don't, I actually get a lot of satisfaction and enrichment from kind of like learning about it. And then usually, like 5 or 6 years later, whatever I learned about comes in handy. Um, and I feel like it also helps me guard against like conspiratorial ideas or anything like that, because the more kind of informed you are on an issue, like the harder it is. Like let's put it this way, like if you were um most of the people who are listening to this are artists or are really familiar with art. And because of that, like if somebody wanted to pretend they were an artist and was using jargon that they thought was art speak, but like they weren't an artist and it was just pretty obvious, it's like I think most of us could sniff it out because we're really familiar with the subject matter, right? Whereas I think, a lot of people who maybe aren't constantly around artists or like constantly making stuff, would have no way, no gauge to tell that a person's just completely full of crap, you know? Um, I feel like that it's that way with information in general, where it's like, the more information you have, better you're going to be able to sniff out if it's like, oh man, I don't think this person knows what they're talking about. Let's see here. I don't like that being the same tone of black. We watched a little bit of 101 Dalmatians yesterday, and I had forgotten how beautiful the background art is in those movies. Like some of the most beautiful background animation, like just the cells in the background, like the background paintings and stuff for that movie are like stunning. Like it's so cool. It's like this French line style. Just was like really interesting to look at. And I knew that about the movie, but it's like one of those things when you almost take something for granted because you've seen it a bunch, and then you're reintroduced to it and you're like, oh yeah, that was really incredible. There's just things that they do in that movie where like there's a cello in the house of the character and they bother to like intentionally offset the colors so it looks all jazzy and cool. And I was like, that's awesome. That like they literally like made it off register for style. And like at the time that's pretty bold, to kind of make that choice just to be like no, and also to go a totally different direction. Maybe I should say a new direction. I think it's a bold choice. All right, so we're just gonna work our way through this crowd and see where we can get. Where can we get to here in this crowd? I'm liking how it's coming out so far, though. It does look very, very convincing. So I feel like, yeah, it's just been a pretty chill process, just getting through this beast of a page. But I'm really eager because I feel like after this page, like the next like 3 or 4 pages are going to be like child's play compared to this thing, you know? That's a movie I haven't seen in a long time. There's a movie back in the day with Macaulay Culkin called Child's Play, I think. It's been a long time. I don't even remember the plot. I just remember it being like really avant-garde because it was like, you know, here's this guy who's like known for like Home Alone. I think he was in a movie called like My Girl or something where he dies from like a bee sting or something. No, the girl, was it him or the girl that died from the bee sting? I can't even remember that one. But anyhow, it was very very shocking back in the day. Um we're going to just work our way through this panel. This panel shall not defeat me. Let's see here. So my goal is to probably at least finish this panel before, you know, calling it on this stream. I have to finish this panel. At this point, it's so close to done. Why wouldn't I finish this panel? Oh yeah, Corey said the girl died. That's right. It was like his friend. And it's actually a pretty I again, I don't know if it holds up now, but I think it was actually a pretty good movie. Um like pretty bold for like a kind of mainstream film, you know. Let's see here. So we're gonna just continue to work our way through these areas and kind of see where we can get. Yeah, Corey said it's a good movie. She lived in a funeral home. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time. I just, you know, I do remember it really being very impactful. But then I think like Child's Play came out, and I think Macaulay Culkin was like a horror movie character. I think Elijah Wood was in that too. Was it called Child's? Maybe it wasn't called Child's Play. What am I? What am I talking about? Child's Play is the movie with Chucky, right? Never mind. Oh, I was thinking about The Good Son and mixing it up with Child's Play in my brain. Child's Play had nothing to do with Macaulay Culkin. Oh my goodness. If you guys are watching this, you can see why I can't, you know, get into sports. It's probably because I can't even follow it, you know? My brain gets confused. The synapses start firing the wrong thing. And for like 20 minutes I talk about Child's Play when I mean The Good Son. All right, so we have this going because I don't know why I made that connection. What a weird one. We're gonna do more of this crowd. More of this crowd is gonna get in. Philip Chandler's joining us and saying good afternoon, people. How's it going? And Philip said, or good morning to you. Top of the morning. Top of the morning to you. Top of the morning. um I'm finishing up this crazy page that's taken way too long. This panel is gonna possibly be the most time I spent on a panel on this entire comic, which is kind of interesting because I thought it would be like the Torquay or whatever, the port in Italy. That took forever. The crowd scene, I thought, like from like half the comic, halfway through the comic, was pretty intense. Oh, Philip said I was correcting myself because I realized you're 3 hours behind me. Yeah, I would like to try to go get the ingredients to make some bread today too. I don't know if that's going to happen because of this comic, but we'll see if that happens. We'll see. So yeah, it was interesting. I was going down this rabbit hole of looking at like different military histories and working on this crazy page that won't die. And then I was like, got all curious about like, I wonder what like these things are. And like, it was just like this long rabbit hole of just looking up information and listening to shows and stuff like that, that probably will never benefit me in the slightest. But I have that kind of brain where it's like, I can't just like mildly learn about something, have a curiosity, and be like, I guess I'll look that up later. It's like, no, if I'm curious about something, I kind of have to pursue it and get really interested in it. Philip said art usually takes longer to finish than anticipated. Well, this page for sure. I mean, I had a feeling when I was biting off I think I even said when I was doing it, I was like, this is going to be a beast to color fill. But I don't even think then I had an idea of how complex this would be. And the thing is, to be fair, I'm not like trying to say this is the most complex page on earth. It was complex for me to execute. I know there's more complex work out there. It just for me it was a challenge. So, there might be some artists who could knock out this panel in like a minute. Um so for me it was a challenge. Let's see here. We're gonna do. I want to pull. Make sure I'm pulling colors from other areas too, so we're not just rainbow affecting it. Do do do. But like this part should go pretty quick in theory. This was also hair, not a back. I thought that was the back, but that's actually going to be somebody's hair. Maybe in that case, that person could have gray hair. Do do do. I like it. I just realized too, I think this was supposed to be not a neck, but a collar because they have those high collars. So we're going to fix that. There we go. And then we'll also fix this little pixel that's sitting there stray. Do, do, do. Yeah, Philip was saying look for bread flour if you can, although all purpose works fine, and bread maker yeast. Nice. Yeah, if I have the possibility of having like a very brief window of time, um, then bread is definitely one of the things that I would like to do. Okay, so we have some of this worked out. we have that. Okay. Now we're going to do a couple callers here. Couple of callers. Kind of like the idea of this too. Okay. We're gonna see how far we can get. Do. So I think we've got a couple things here. This is going to be probably like a beard of sorts and a neck here. Okay. That's good. Let's do this hair. I also just realized this portion should be okay. Now we'll do this. I had accidentally kind of made a mistake there. And let's do a little bit darker of hair. Kind of moving through this page, you know? We're getting there, guys. We're getting there. We're almost at the hour mark, which means there might be a trailer that I play in a second. What I always ask once we get to about an hour into the stream is if you guys can take the minute or so, right? It's not even a minute. It takes 2 seconds. There's a little like button that you can click, and that helps these videos get more views later on. So if you're enjoying the stream, if the stream has provided anything, even if it's just background noise, I would appreciate if you could take the minute or so or the 5 seconds to hit the like button. And while you're at it, subscribe if you haven't yet. And maybe hit that bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. I'm going to play the trailer for Jacob's Apartment. And when I play these trailers, please consider, if you haven't yet, pick up a copy of Jacob's Apartment. It's a really good book. I'm very proud of it. Put a lot of work into it. Full color graphic novel, illustrated, written by me. Or 2 stories. Like, please consider picking up one of those books. They're books I'm immensely proud of. Yeah, but I mean, regardless, the one thing you can do that costs nothing, except like a few seconds of your time, is hit that like button. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is, once I've selected this, we're going to make the area that we have yet to fill magenta. We're almost through this. We're going to make the area that hasn't been filled as magenta. And then I'm going to play that trailer, and we will come back and hopefully finish at minimum the top panel, but I'm hoping we can get further into the page. All right, so here's the trailer for Jacob's apartment. And I will see you guys in a minute. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing things. I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. All right, welcome back. Let's put on the music real quick. Let's do this real quick.
Let's get ready to crumble.
That's right. All right, if you're just tuning in, we're about an hour into episode 306 of Joshua Kemble's live stream, and we're working on the page that will not die. The probably most complicated page I've had to do yet for Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. We're almost through the hardest panel, and we're talking about whatever comes up and keeping each other company while we work on art. So I will see you guys as I'm doing this. Here it is. What is going on in the comments? Philip said, I hit your like button. I have to change over my laundry, though. Back in a moment. Nice. Good luck changing your laundry, my dude. Yeah, so working on this stuff, getting through it. My wife and I might be working on a book pretty soon. Little book project. For those of you who don't know, my wife is a kids book illustrator. A very talented kids book illustrator. And we recently picked up a client that needs stuff in vector, and I happen to know vector, and so I'm going to color and do the line art for it. That should be fun. So it'll be crunch time for me at some point on that project. But it should be fun. I also have a pitch to kind of work on, so I plan on hopefully digging into some pages in a little bit, working out some logistics on it. And I'm working on a crowd scene. If you guys didn't catch it at the beginning, too, I'm doing a thing right now where this was on the recommendation of my friend Chris Caligua, where right here we have like a little Frank Salazar guest spot in the background. And my buddy Chris called me and said, hey, you should tell people that if they super chat like $20 or something, you'll throw them in the crowd. And I am offering that. Yeah, so if you guys want me to throw you into this crowd, you know, like there's some room on this last panel to kind of throw somebody else in there. I will, with super chats of $20 or more. And I think I might just keep that as like an ongoing thing anytime there's like background characters. So if you want to be immortalized in a book by Turner Publishing, that'll come out in probably like a year or two, feel free. That is on offer. The only catch to it is it's just going to be a quick cartoon, so it will resemble you in ways I think it resembles you, and it kind of will be what it is. But I'll try really hard to make it look awesome. I think I captured Frank Salazar there. I think I captured his likeness quite a bit, even though it's a silly cartoon. So I'm happy about that. We're gonna okay. Here is gonna be, what is this? Okay, this would be, I think, the back of, no, that's somebody's coat. Okay, so we're gonna get back into color filling here. This would be the back of the chair here. And we're just going to work our way from left to right until we're done. Dunzo. Actually, you know what? Just to change things up, we'll work from right to left now. Maybe meet in the middle. Like a battle strategy, right? We're going to flank the center. I think that's what flanking is. I don't know much about that kind of stuff either, like battle tactics and stuff, but I think flanking is when you, isn't that when you like come from two sides? If you guys know battle war strategies and stuff, let me know. I don't know. So this is going to be a gentleman here, and he's going to have, a collar. We're going to get his hair. You can keep noticing me color fill with like the skin tone of the figure. I always find that that's like a really good way to kind of have a palette that feels like it's in the same family. I like to use hue saturation a lot with my color palettes to kind of keep them somewhat similar, so they feel kind of more organic and the colors kind of mesh together. Let's see here. But we're going with a very kind of literal color palette on a lot of these too. Okay. This interesting person here. These were all just figures we blocked in about like half a week ago, I think. And we've just been plugging away at this page. But I feel like because of all the flats on a crowd scene, in a weird way, this is like the have you guys ever heard that statement of eating your frog? I think it's a Benjamin Franklin statement where he was saying if you have to eat a frog, it's best, like, if you're starting your day and you have to actually eat a frog, it's better to do it in the morning. That way, like, kind of everything afterwards is like a pleasant surprise. Nothing's going to be as bad as eating the frog. And I'm kind of doing that with this, where it's like I'm eating my frog here. I'm getting through the hardest panel, and then after this I feel like it'll go real quick. Yeah, Philip Chandler said eat the frog. I've heard that for ages. Yeah, I because I feel like a lot of people will kind of play at sequential art. Like they do all the fun stuff and then they start doing the hard stuff and they lose their interest. Whereas I feel like one of the things I like about working kind of sequentially through these is you just kind of take on the challenges as they come. So it's like if I got to work on a hard panel today, I got to work on a hard panel. If I got to work on an easy, quick page, then I get to work on an easy, quick page. It's like kind of just forces you into this flexibility to just work sequentially through it. Because inevitably you're going to get to a point where it's like, oh man, panel one's a nightmare. I can't wait to get to panel two or whatever. And rather than get that little quick fix of like a quick win, you have to kind of fight the long battle. And then after it, it feels like really cool because you're like, I got through that. And that can kind of create momentum. Um, as silly as that is. Philip said, I used to jokingly say swallow the toad. Yeah. But I do kind of feel like sometimes we avoid the um the hard things and whether I like it or not, I'm very systematic with things and so and also very uh list based with my thinking. Like it's very hard for me to not kind of once I set something as a goal, it's hard for me to deviate too much. Like I can have flexibility in the sense of as things come up and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, again, like having a to-do list is really important for me. And let's see here. Let's get rid of. And so like I feel like with with comics, this is a really helpful thing to have because I like to be really thorough and kind of just do things as they come. So it's like that approach has gotten me through some really difficult pages. And because I'm slightly stubborn too, it's allowed me to accomplish some weird things. Like this panel, I'm pretty happy with. I think it's come out pretty good. And hopefully that'll be kind of a wow panel a little bit. And it's only able to be done because I'm just kind of weird about it. Like I won't feel right about myself until I finish this panel. um, yeah. But I am excited about getting this done. And it looks like, by the time, well, we'll see. We'll see how quick I can go. So I definitely want to go till about maybe noon. Um, yeah, so we'll see how this kind of works out. We'll see how far we can get by noon. I'm hoping we can get pretty far. Oh, that's way too close to the other guy's jacket. I want enough little deviations in color to kind of keep it interesting and keep all the characters feeling like different characters. I'm going to try to eyedrop some other colors too, just so that there's consistency in the color too. Because quite often, like a lot of people will just kind of go with whatever color And then, their color palette starts feeling really all over the place. And there's kind of a thing to be said for repetition, where like there are some rules of repetition in design and illustration that I think are really helpful. One is like if you introduce a color, you want to use it at least 3 times in an image in like kind of 3 separated areas that are somewhat balanced. And I think generally you can kind of make a palette work if you repeat a lot of color. Um, but it'll be interesting. Like one thing I miss from this is like one of the things I loved about not comics, but t-shirts was like picking a color palette where you're limited to like 3 or 4 colors. Um, or doing like analogous palettes or like things like that. Because there is a whole color spectrum outside of just like literal color. But for this comic, we're going for literal color, partially to get that like toned plate kind of look. This lady has kind of puffy shouldered blouse. Oh, and we're gonna get that in there. You know what? While I'm at it, might as well get rid of the whites of his eyes. We'll get into that later, but just felt like doing that. There's a little bit of an indication of a chair here. Going to be back here. I'm going to introduce a little bit of a different skin tone just so that like not everybody's the same. We can get away with almost the same skin tone for quite a bit of this, but I want a little variation there. My son is listening to the Undertale soundtrack, I think. Oh, what are you listening to, Ben? Oh, he said he's playing something right now. Okay. Anyhow, there's this dance music, is all I'm saying, and it's kind of fun. Sounds like a little rave is going on in our living room. So yeah, I haven't done my workout today yet, so I plan on doing that after I get through to like about noon. Probably eat lunch and then work out, and then jump right back to it. So I think one of the fun things about sequential narratives though is like even this to me feels like an example of how comics usually go for me, where it's kind of this wild undertaking and you're carving out like a tiny little section at a time, and it takes a long time, but then like afterwards you end up with this product that's like really cool, and very kind of fulfilling in a weird way. um and I think this is going to be the back of a chair here. That's going to be an arm. Oh, maybe that won't be the back of a chair. That'll be the back of a human. So this won't be an arm. This will be the back of a chair. This is going to be moving over this way. And we're getting closer and closer. We have flanked the center, and it's starting to happen, guys. Phillips, a question for you. Theaters like this were quite dark back then. I see you putting a lot of color and detail in it. Are you going to leave it bright, or will it be darkened for the finished version? So I am actually leaving it bright, because when you see the final rendering, it looks like this. This is actually fairly dark. Once the rendering's placed on there, does that make sense? I might end up adding a little bit of a light source in the on the stage, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But I might actually add some white highlights to the main stage, just to kind of reinforce what you're talking about. But that's a great question, Philip. But part of why I'm being so saturated with the color is because a lot of the rendering work is going to be done by that pencil that's like overlaid over it. Hopefully that answered your question. And I mean, there was always the option, to not make this page have every single figure kind of drawn out, but I wanted to have. I really want this panel to kind of draw attention to it. I feel like every once in a while you need to have things in comics. To me, comics are interesting when you every once in a while you have a panel or two where you go kind of all out on. And when you have that, it just creates so much interest for the reader, because, you know, it's not just, I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like this is supposed to be a very stunning theater. And I think this kind of works for it. There's multiple approaches one could take, but, and I've definitely done like simplified pages and stuff like that for sure, and simplified sections. But I feel like, I don't know why. It seemed like a Where's Waldo type page, or section, just felt right for the for this page. Um, and one of the things I like to do too when I'm coming up with comics is, like, I like to kind of feel things out and see, like emotionally, where does the reader need to be, and that can kind of dictate where you go with like your execution. Like, a general rule of drawing is, like, when you're drawing hair, you don't need to draw every hair on the head. But there's occasional styles and ways where you can draw every hair on the head. And it actually is really cool, So it really, it's like for every rule in art, there's usually something that allows you to kind of deviate from it. And generally, like for me, it just kind of depends on what the story seems to need. And in this case, the story really felt like it needed this, as much, to my own chagrin. It needed this kind of moment. I accidentally deselected, so I'm gonna go back. But there's another thing I'm noticing here, which is a sloppy selection here, where I need to kind of clean it up. So what I'll do is kind of select this. We'll go in, and then we'll clean it up. Boom. Love it. We're getting closer. Getting closer to done. But were I executing this book in a different style too, I might be just silhouetting quite a bit of the audience, Um, or if this was like a different kind of book, like let's say I was doing work for hire pages or something. Um, there might be quicker ways to kind of get the same job done that I don't think would have the visual um, joy of a panel like this, but would still work. Okay, this is going to be skin tone again. Let's get another variety of skin tone in here. And I'm going to just go ahead and deselect a couple of these. I'll pick this person too. And let's see if we can get one more person here. Okay. And now I'm going to do just a little bit of a darker tone. And we'll go a little bit more kind of there for the hair here. And I kind of don't like that seemed to be a different thing going on. What was this one going to be? This is going to be, I think, the red of the chair. We're seeing quite a bit more of it, at least in this section. Okay. At this point, I'm going to do just a little bit more of the skin, and we're just kind of going with feeling here. So initially, I was just knocking out a character at a time, but I am kind of feeling like we can work a little bit quicker with some of these final characters or figures, where I'm just going in and like selecting anything that's going to have this skin tone. And we'll see where it goes. And I've mentioned this before too. Like one of my strengths and weaknesses is I am not one of the quickest artists at all. Like even close. I can work quickly if I have to, but in general, I'm a pretty slow artist. Like it takes me a while to do stuff. But the thing that's always helped me with that is I'm also very stubborn and persistent. And so, you know, there's artists that can execute way better pages than me, but I tend to I'll spend more time to just make sure that I'm like hopefully holding up with the rest of the guys. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of been a big trick of mine for years, is just I'm willing to put in the time. And I actually have to say, like, I think a lot of the time, if you're willing to put in the time, sometimes you'll get better results than, like, guys who are like way quicker and way more talented. Um, and again, I'm not saying this is like the perfect page or anything like that, but I think this page is a good example of, like, again, there's some artists that could probably knock this out a lot quicker, but there's also a lot of artists that would just avoid a page like this or take like a different angle or something like that because they just don't want to do the work, which is fine. It's just, that's always been like a kind of superpower that I've been able to access is just absurd uh, dedication, like where I will spend more time than a lot of people I know. That I feel was supposed to be a skin tone. So there I want to do. Okay, let's get a little bit further. I think this was going to be the back of this person. Kind of like the idea of that being there. This was going to be kind of more like blonde hair kind of thing going here. This is the back of a woman. This will be her outfit. This can be do I want black hair here? Do we want to go? Let's go back to brown hair here. And we're getting through this page like a mad lunatic. Yes. Yes. We are there. We're getting closer. Getting much closer. So I'm going to continue to kind of consolidate this and kind of see what we can do here. And we're just trying to get a lot of different color tones that are kind of in the same family, and sort of fill up the space here and have it hopefully make sense, right? You don't want to like just have arbitrary colors in there that don't kind of distinguish. Like, you want it to be where hopefully somebody who looks at it could like figure out what the flat colored thing is. This gentleman, he's gonna have, let's do that. I kind of like that. That's a lighter kind of brown. Let's say we're gonna do this woman. Let's dress, maybe? Let's find out. Kind of wouldn't mind her dress being a little bit on the yellow side. And we're getting closer, getting much closer. We're almost done with this insane crowd scene, guys. Yes. Yes. It's looking pretty good, too. I like it. Okay. I do think we'll add a little bit of lighting on the stage at the end. Just a little bit, just to keep the focus on the stage. And now it's just a matter of kind of busting through all these different details. See if we can get getting there very slowly but surely. And if Frank were in the chats, he'd be saying, "Don't call me Shirley." I know he would. If Frank, if you're watching this after the fact, I know you thought it. I know you thought it. Okay. Let's see here. All right. We have this background here. We have this gentleman here. We have believe a lady here. Nice. Frank was saying, "Great job, Josh." Hey, Phil, we meet again. Nice. Frank, I don't know if you heard my joke. Oh, nice. Anyhow, I said slowly but surely we're getting here, and I was joking, Frank, that if you were here, you would be making the "Don't call me Shirley" joke. No question. Okay, we've got a couple other things happening here that we can start to kind of again like work our way through all the little sections like a video game in a weird way, doing color fills. This is a bald man. We're going to have our getting through it. The page that will not die, the panel from hell, is almost done. Let's save. That would be smart. Can you guys imagine if I spent all this time on it and I hadn't saved and then it just crashes? That would be like the worst thing on the planet. Well, not the worst thing on the planet, but that would be awful. But it would be very entertaining for you guys. I want to do another one of these. Maybe this could be this hair. Oh. Maybe this could be this hair. Maybe this could be this. This is kind of a collar, so we'll select that. We only have a few little sections left. Take care of these stray pixels here. Only a few left to go. Let's pull a little bit of color from the furthest side, so we're not getting too far away. Which works? This one works. This works. Getting so much closer, guys. I think we'll get pretty close to like done with the crazy crowd scene. Gives us enough time to possibly move on to the next thing, but we'll see. Yeah, I had an instructor in. They were actually the head of my graduate committee too. And she did a lot of art, like sequential art, like storyboards and stuff like that, as well as costume design for film and stuff like that. And one of the things that she always said about period dramas that bugged her, that kind of made her distinguished in her field, was that quite often when people are depicting different eras in time, they like almost like think that everything was black and white. So they'll like, look at black and white photos and just assume everything was like desaturated and there was like no color. And that's like kind of not true to history, where like a lot of these outfits and stuff did have like a lot of color. I always try to kind of keep that in mind too, because I could just go with like browns and blacks and stuff like that. I know a lot of the figures here are wearing a lot of browns and blacks, but trying to also bring in a variety of color just because of that rule. Like it's an interesting observation of like just because something was in the old west or something doesn't mean everything was sepia. Like I don't know if that makes sense. uh Frank said I was drawing little cobblestones for game tokens, and man, my hand wanted to cramp up. I decided I did enough. Nice. um Philip Chandler said, fun fact of the day, the word hello was not part of the common language until the early 1900s. It started as something to shout over the telephone when it was new. Interesting. Good day, sir. Good evening. Good tidings. Trying to think of ways to say hello. I think hello is a great word, but I will say there is something kind of awesome about not saying hello, saying something else that's very hello-ish, but it's like something that's not commonly used anymore. Like greetings is good, I think that Scott Circlin uses greetings quite a lot on his channel. You guys, you guys, am I crazy? Did this just happen? Did we just finish the panel that wouldn't die? At least the majority of the flats? Oh my goodness. I'm so pleased to be done with this nightmare panel. Okay, so I'm going to try one thing to see if it goes too far. So now that's what it's going to look like. I'm pretty happy with that, but I think we need to lighten the central focus just a tiny bit more with some subtlety, hopefully. And I'll see if it works. And if it's too much, we'll just go back. But I was thinking like subtle indications of the lighting would be nice. I almost want it to like be like mist, like the lighting's almost misty. And I want to really indicate the light source on these figures. But again, we might overkill it and we might have to go backwards. We'll see. But I think it would be fun to really highlight what's happening on this stage here. Might be overkill. And again, we can pull back. Like the beauty of this is I'm doing this lighting on its own layer, so we can pull back and kind of go backwards too if we have to. Now, I don't do a lot of rendering on these on these pages, and there's kind of a rule that I've set up just to kind of keep the toned look. That's a little too overkill there. I like it being kind of subtle, just barely there. Now let's see if this works. Now we're just going to tone it back just a tad bit. I think doing the backdrop was a little much. A little too much. I want it to be real, just real implied, not, forced. Frank said, hey, Phil, I met a Canadian born the other day. His mother moved to my neck of the woods from Toronto when he was younger. And he said, I stopped myself from asking about maple syrup. You got to ease into the maple, Frank. You got to ease in. It's a slow introduction to your obsession with maple. Kind of start slow and then work your way in. I kind of like that as a subtle thing. Let's see if it's adding anything. I think it does. I think it adds just enough subtlety. Yeah, I think that works. Now I want to see, what does it look like under the line and over the line? I kind of like it under the line more than over it. I feel like, okay. So I'm going to call this lighting. We don't need anything more than that. I'm actually pretty happy with this panel. Okay, so I'm going to save. We're a little bit before 12, so let's see how far we can get on this other panel. That should be fun. What we could do probably in time is I could at least work on coloring Robert and Elizabeth. So here's our previous page. Previous page. Let's make sure everything's good. Okay. So our previous page has all the tones we're going to need. So are we showing Robert's eye? Yes, we are. So let's get Robert's eyeball, which we see in one tiny bit. Let's see. I think in this case we could do whites. And we're going to go for another, I'd say till about noon. Right now it's about 11:40 on my end, so we'll see how far we can get. But I think we can get through the Elizabeth parts here. And we can add in our, okay, Robert's eyeball would be white. And his collar. Philip was saying if Robert had a top hat, he'd look a bit like Lincoln. He does look a bit like Lincoln. Yeah, Robert Browning, a young Robert Browning had the Lincoln kind of beard. Let's see here. Okay, now we're gonna do Elizabeth's hair. Wait, did we finish all the whites? No, we didn't. Haha. We got to get this. We have about 20 minutes to go, which I'm pretty excited about. Maybe we'll go a little longer. We'll see. And I want to just get all of Elizabeth's dress kind of worked out and her hair and stuff like that. And then Robert as well. And I don't think they appear in any other panels on this page. Oh, they do. Well, in that case, we'll go ahead and get them on every panel. I almost forgot about this other crowd scene. Yeah, this page is fun. This crowd scene will go quicker, though, I suspect. So they're smiling, so I think we're going wow, and I think in that case it'll be teeth that we're seeing on Robert. I think for Elizabeth, too. And we're just kind of selecting all of the areas that would be white on Robert and Elizabeth. But yeah, he needs a mole. I think Lincoln had a mole, right? Or maybe that's just my thought of Lincoln because of the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Am I crazy? Did Lincoln have a mole or was that just Bill and Ted? It could literally be both. Like, as far as I know, it could be anything. To take a look at Elizabeth's dress. Okay, cool. Okay. Robert's being entirely covered up. It's definitely a weird angle here. But it works. And here is the white of Elizabeth's dress again. And here will be the white of Elizabeth's dress. And yeah, pretty excited. Okay. Now let's do Elizabeth's hair. Let's do that next. or her lips? Let's do her lips because her lips are an even smaller detail. It's easier to isolate out the smaller details first. Elizabeth's lip color is here. And that might be other than those last few panels. Yeah, here we go. And here we go. I don't think we're going to see much of that actually, but we'll still color it. Oh, and we wanted to do her teeth too. I forgot. Just to differentiate, I think having that be kind of separated would be good. Okay. Let's do Elizabeth's dress real quick because that'll be easy to do. In theory, that'll be easy to do. Okay. Yeah, it's a little funny when Robert looks a little bit like Abe Lincoln and then you have a theater scene. Like it builds some tension, you know what I'm saying? I feel like the front of this dress is going to have like a kind of thing to it. Okay. I'm trying to think. Okay. What else? Do that same thing. And this will be the dress itself, which will be good. And then I think we're going to bring back that white again. So the dress has kind of a thing to it. But it is a funny thought. Like, yeah. Like a theater sequence, we're so programmed to be like anybody who looks slightly like Abe Lincoln in a movie theater or in a, theater. You guys ever seen Whitest Kids You Know, the sketch comedy group? They have a really funny Abe Lincoln sketch. It's a pretty good bit. The premise is that Abe Lincoln's like the obnoxious guy in the theater, and John Wilkes Booth is like just trying to quietly watch his play. And Abe is just like razzing him, and he's just like, "What? What?" Like, it's so funny. So finally, like Booth, of course, just like flips out, you know. And Lincoln's like, "What, are you gonna shoot me?" Like, it's so funny. It's very funny, but it's like it's a funny version of history. I like that idea, you know. That like Booth didn't have any political reason. He was just like a guy at a theater who was just annoyed. He's just like, dude, could you be quiet, please? I'm trying to watch this movie or this play. Just calm down. Just calm down. He does that like Abe Lincoln to John Wilkes Booth. Just calm down. Just calm down. It's a very funny sketch. All right. We have Elizabeth's hair done. And we still have 10 minutes to go. I think we're going to get Robert and Elizabeth completely flatted in. Today, we are definitely going to finish the flats for this page. On this stream, we're hopefully just going to finish Robert and Elizabeth. And then I will break for lunch. Because eating food is important. Some people say. It's a hot take, guys. Some people sometimes think eating food is a pretty important thing. We got to get that hair. And I think what we'll do after the hair is get Robert, not Robert, we'll get her skin tone. And we'll be well on our way to getting closer to done. Okay, let's see here. We're going to have her skin tone. I hit enter and it didn't register. That's weird. Okay, skin tone of Elizabeth. And Elizabeth's skin tone again. And Elizabeth's skin tone one last time. I mean, that crowd's going to take a while to execute the flat colors for. I don't think there's a skin tone on this this page. There isn't. There's one thing I want to fix with it, which is her hair, which is being overlapped, but the color can kind of help clarify. Semi-tangent here. Here we go. And now we're going to do Robert. Robert is wearing this, is actually wearing a top hat. He just took it off in the theater. So what we're going to do now is his jacket is going to be this color. So we can get his jacket real quick. Robert usually wears brown, but in the case of this outfit, he's wearing to the opera or the theater. It's, of course, he's going to be wearing a more kind of formal outfit. So here's his coat. We're just doing the coat color for now. And once we have the coat color kind of figured out, then we're going to do the vest. But first we have to deselect the coat here. And I accidentally selected the vest, which I shouldn't do. And then we're going to have our coat here, which will still be Robert's coat color. And there we go. Now, what I want... Oh, wait. We aren't done. Get his coat here. Do. And I, of course, have to kind of transfer these colors over because I want the colors to be really consistent so the characters are hopefully, at least subconsciously, like recognizable. Okay. It's going to be the jacket lapel thing. Okay, and then do we get Robert's lapel thing here? Oh, we did. We already did the little lapel in certain areas. Okay, I think... I think we've got it mostly taken care of. Okay. Now we're going to do... I'm imagining his tie is going to match... Yeah. So this will be the color of his vest, I'm guessing. Because generally your vest is going to match your pants. You know? Unless you're Paul Pate, and then, you know, you may just not be wearing pants. How did that start, by the way? The whole pantsless Paul thing that happened on Christopher. I think that happened on Christopher Runtsman's stream, but I'm curious how that whole thing started. Let's see here. Okay. I kind of like the idea that his bow tie will match his vest. So that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to do this. It also makes for better scenes where you're kind of seeing the back of him. Okay. We have 4 more minutes left of this stream. And we are getting quite a bit further. We just have to get Robert's hair. Should we do the hair? Yeah, let's do the hair first. And then the skin tone last. So this is going to be Robert's hair. And oh my goodness. I hate that about selections. One of the most annoying things about selections is when you accidentally double click. It can be a real pain. All right, guys. We got about 4 minutes left. We're trying to finish up the flat colors for Robert. I think we're going to make it. We finished during this stream the coloring for the panel from Hell. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. And we're kind of moving on to the other panels. But I thought before we get into like coloring everything in each individual panel, we can at least get our placeholder colors for Robert and Elizabeth in there. And see where that goes. So there's Robert's hair here. That's one. Let's do Robert's hair here. And let's do Robert's hair here. And then the last part will be the skin tone, which shouldn't take too long at all. So while I'm working on these selections, if you guys have not yet and you've been watching this stream and enjoying it, please hit that like. Especially if it's providing you company while you're working or whatever. Just hit like on the video. It helps a lot. It goes a long way. If you haven't yet, definitely consider subscribing. And yeah, if you want to know when things are about to go live, when I'm about to stream, like a good example, after I finish these flat colors of Robert, we'll probably be calling it so I can go get lunch and stuff like that. But if I stream later today and you're subscribed, you may not actually know it. So hitting that bell and choosing to get notifications will really help you to catch these shows live. And these are fun to watch after the fact, but I've heard from a lot of people, a lot of people in the audience enjoy catching these live and participating in the chats and stuff like that. And, hearing like the interaction and stuff like that as it's going. And if you want to catch these live, make sure you've hit that bell so you get notifications. It'll have like a drop down and you just basically pick which way you'd like to get notifications. But that way, like when something's about to go live, hopefully you get a little, heads up on YouTube, like, hey, this thing's about to go live. And that'll help because, I do night streams, I do day streams, I do midday streams. And that'll be a way to kind of assure that you're able to kind of catch them live. And we're doing one last pass on Robert, just getting all the skin tones in. And then what we'll do is fill the rest, as I usually do. The things that I haven't flat colored yet, I'll make a color that isn't going to be used within the composition so that I can save that selection. And in this case, I'll probably pick magenta for that color. I am also insanely curious about one of these things here, which is, did I forget to get is that the top of his head? I actually think it is. So let's go ahead and get that taken care of too. That's going to be here. And then I think we've colored Robert and Elizabeth for the whole page. So what I'm going to do is, again, just fill in that magenta color as a placeholder. We'll do that right now. Hit save. Awesome. And I'm going to have lunch. My wife is sweet and made lunch. And I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll look at it with the shading. Look at that, ladies and gents. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to finish with this page. This page from hell. All right. Thanks to everybody who has tuned in and watched the stream. And again, I'll see you guys on the next one. Enjoy your lunchtime, hopefully. If it's later than lunch, then just enjoy your afternoon. If it's earlier, enjoy your morning. I'll see you guys on the next live stream. Goodbye.